the 2023 Met Gala was unbelievably boring. Although the famous and fashionable have been attending the Met Gala for decades at this point, it's only in more recent years that it's become a worldwide phenomenon. Traditionally held on the first Monday of May, the Met Gala marks the opening of the Costume Institute's annual fashion exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Established back in 1948, the fundraising event has become one of the highlights of the New York City social scene, in large part because of ex-editor-in-chief for American Vogue, Diana Vreeland, who became a consultant for the Costume Institute in 1971. Prior to that point, the Met Gala had been largely attended by New York high society and the creme de la creme of the fashion industry. But during her tenure, Vreeland began inviting celebrities, which raised the event's prestige and set the foundation for the spectacle it is today. Besides moving the gala to the Metropolitan Museum permanently, Vreeland also introduced themes in 1973, with said themes relating to that year's exhibit. Although not technically mandatory, guests of the gala were expected to dress the part, something that has proven to be difficult even 50 years later. Current American Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour has overseen the Met Gala since 1995, becoming the final say on everything from the theme to the guest list to the food, and it has since become one of the most exclusive events in the world. 2023 especially, as Wintour reportedly cracked down on the guest list following increased backlash directed at the amount of influencers and reality TV stars who had attended in prior years. The Costume Institute's 2023 exhibit, Karl Lagerfeld: A Line of Beauty, examines the designer's work over the course of his career, all the way from his humble beginnings as a freelancer in the 1950s to his final collection for Chanel in 2019, as well as his creative process. Although the German-born designer is largely remembered for his time at Chanel, where he effectively reinvigorated public interest in the brand following years of declining sales and reception, Lagerfeld also designed for prominent fashion houses including Jean Patou, Balmain, Chloe, Fendi, and his namesake label, Karl Lagerfeld. Keeping in line with the exhibit, the dress code for the Met Gala was announced as In Honor of Karl, with this year's celebrity co-chairs including Michaela Cole, Penelope Cruz, Roger Federer, and Dua Lipa. The brands that are sponsoring the event include Chanel, Fendi, and Karl Lagerfeld, so obviously there's an implicit expectation that celebrities will be wearing those brands. Since the theme was first announced, it's attracted criticism, in large part because of Lagerfeld himself, whose legacy was nearly eclipsed by his numerous controversies, which ranged from fatphobic comments that were directly influenced by his own negative body image, to editorials that featured models in blackface and yellowface, to frequent dismissal of the Me Too movement and feminist issues. If you want a really in-depth look at Lagerfeld's life, especially his design history and controversies, I'd highly recommend checking out this video by Understitch. Unlike some of the Met Gala's successful past themes like 2018's Heavenly Bodies or 2015's China Through the Looking Glass, Karl Lagerfeld: A Line of Beauty doesn't leave much room for interpretation, essentially setting up attendees to show up in archive Chanel and call it a day, which is indeed what wound up happening. With the House of Chanel also being the theme of the 2005 Met Gala, I can't help but find this year's theme rather derivative, which I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised by considering the current state of American Vogue. Since Lagerfeld's passing in 2019, several other notable figures in the fashion world have died, including Thierry Mugler, Vivienne Westwood, Andre Leon Talley, Issey Miyake, Pierre Cardin, Kenzo Takada, Mary Quant, Virgil Abloh, and many, many more. Because there were so many deaths in such little time, I feel as though an in memoriam theme would not only have allowed for interesting interpretations, but also highlighted the works of other fashion figures who also deserve attention. If there was a sort of memento mori meets memento vivere type of theme, attendees could have worn mourning attire, clothing from specific deceased designers, or outfits that highlight how appreciative they are of life. Considering how large of an impact COVID had on both society and the fashion industry, that theme could also be incredibly relevant for today. Now that you've gotten some insight into the theme of the evening, let's actually talk about what people wore at the 2023 Met Gala, whether or not they were on theme, their inspirations, and my overall thoughts on their outfits. Keep in mind that hundreds of people attended this event, so obviously I can't talk about everybody. So my apologies if I missed your favorite celebrity. But you can always tweet me at Modern Girls and I can try to respond there. Unless I'm referring to someone specifically by name, think of this video as a general critique. So some of my statements may not hold true for everyone who attended the gala. Also, it must be said, but this is about the clothes, not the people. Anyway, let's get into it. First things first, we have to talk about the carpet itself. For the Met Gala, the carpet and the surrounding area are decorated to somewhat match the theme, but I'm completely baffled by the choices made this year. The Baroque-inspired backdrop makes sense considering it was a period of time that Lagerfeld drew significant inspiration from, but it clashes terribly with the press divider, chandeliers, and most noticeably, the carpet. I have no idea why they went with red and blue lines everywhere, because it looks like toothpaste, and it isn't at all something I'd associate with Karl Lagerfeld. I feel like white with black and gray accents, or even an all-out black carpet would have been far more fitting. Not to mention, it wouldn't have been half as distracting in photos. Lagerfeld was known for creating elaborate sets for his runway shows, ranging from indoor beaches to grocery stores to autumnal forests, and I feel like the Met Gala could have taken any one of those shows and used them as inspiration. As we already mentioned, Karl Lagerfeld designed for numerous brands over the course of his career, and unsurprisingly, many of his past works wound up making appearances at the Met Gala. Some people were incredibly straightforward, simply plucking archive pieces from the vault without any attempt to make them their own, including Maude Apatow, Vanessa Kirby, Naomi Campbell, Margot Robbie, Lila Moss, and Margaret Qualley. So many people wound up pulling from the archives with such little thought behind their choices that Olivia Wilde and Margaret Zhang even showed up in the same violin dress from Chloe 1983. But who do you think wore it best? Even though everyone else fawned over her outfit, I personally found Dua Lipa's look to be incredibly unimaginative. Previously worn by Claudia Schiffer, who received the coveted honor of being a Chanel bride over a dozen times, the dress is from the 1992 Chanel Haute Couture collection, where it was styled with a cropped jacket and hat. Dua Lipa is a pretty girl, and it's a pretty dress, but the styling of this outfit left a lot to be desired, especially in regard to her hair, accessories, and shoes, which is actually my complaint about a lot of the attendees. You should be dressed up from head to toe, not shoulder to ankle. It's kind of become a recurring joke at this point, but seriously, where were the necklaces? Lagerfeld was literally hated by Chanel's customers when he first took over for the brand because he over-accessorized. Everyone at the Met Gala should have been going all out with costume jewelry. Nicole Kidman was one of many who wore Chanel, but at least her look had some deeper meaning. It happened to be the dress that she wore for her first commercial for Chanel No. 5 back in 2004, although I'll admit that I found the styling to be a bit boring. Gisele Bündchen wore a dress from Chanel Spring/Summer 2007, which she'd previously been photographed wearing for Harper's Bazaar Korea by Lagerfeld himself. I was most impressed with the people who wore non-Lagerfeld designs while still capturing the essence of his work. This is perhaps best epitomized by Anne Hathaway's custom Versace number. Skin-tight with cutouts and the brand's signature safety pins, the dress is immediately recognizable as Versace, but the use of tweed, pearl accents, and flowers on the bust make its Chanel inspirations obvious, and it's actually one of my favorites of the night. Rachel Brosnahan did something similar in Sergio Hudson, with her black sheer dress with strategic sequins paying homage to Chloe 1992. Liu Wen's Tory Burch dress, while simple, was also reminiscent of Chanel thanks to the camellia flowers on the dress's hem, although I did feel as though she was in desperate need of a necklace. Ashley Graham wore a designer by Harris Reed, which took inspiration from Chanel Haute Couture Fall/Winter 1987. Elle Fanning wore bespoke Vivienne Westwood, with the ensemble not only referencing Karl Lagerfeld's famous Chanel brides, but also the first time that she and the designer met. Speaking of Chanel brides, there were multiple white dresses that were meant to pay homage to these iconic looks, but many of them lacked the over-the-top and playful element that Lagerfeld's runways were known for. Some, like Alexa Chung's and Rihanna's, did succeed in this, but I'm personally just not a big fan of what they wore. I did like Penelope Cruz's dress, though. Both Emma Chamberlain and Sydney Sweeney wore Miu Miu, but I personally wasn't a fan of either look. Emma had two outfits, one for walking the red carpet and the other for her interviewing segment. Another ode to Chanel, these two-piece sets both wind up looking tacky and cheap, in part because of their too casual styling, but also because of their ill fit. I especially hate the frayed bra hem. I don't care if it's a Miu Miu signature, if you're charging thousands of dollars for something, you should finish sewing it. Sydney Sweeney's is a touch better, but I felt as though it didn't really suit her, a frequent complaint I have when she's on the red carpet. Thom Browne dressed several celebrities for the Met Gala, including Tiana Taylor, Jenna Ortega, Sora Choi, Janelle Monáe, and Bella Ramsey. Although these looks were identifiable as Thom Browne because of their impeccable modern tailoring, it was also clear that they were a loving tribute to Lagerfeld's work. I also appreciated how each outfit was designed with the wearer in mind, resulting in no two looking alike. The only one I wound up disliking is Olivia Rodrigo's, and not because the dress wasn't great, but because I found the styling to be so lackluster. My favorites of the brown bunch were probably Tiana Taylor, Sora Choi, and Janelle Monáe, with the latter going a step further than the rest by wearing a vintage Chanel swimsuit and carrying a bag that paid homage to Lagerfeld's beloved cat, Choupette. Lagerfeld was gifted the animal back in 2011, and the two soon became inseparable, with Choupette even serving as inspiration for some of Lagerfeld's designs and appearing in editorials. At the Met Gala, there were several references to Choupette, some more obvious than others. Chloe Fineman carried around a pink Judith Lieber cat purse as an ode to the fluffy feline. For her first Met Gala ever, Doja Cat wore a hooded Oscar de la Renta dress with ears and also donned prosthetics to give her face a more cat-like appearance. Jared Leto also wore a Choupette-inspired outfit, essentially becoming the party's mascot. And although I preferred Doja's as it was a less literal interpretation, I do think it's funny that every single Met Gala, Jared Leto decides to pull off some ridiculous gimmick. Men are usually the weakest links at the Met Gala, showing up in uninspired suits that could be worn at practically any formal event. But this year was an exception. While some bland suits did wind up making an appearance at the 2023 Met Gala, a surprising amount of men actually had fun with their clothing for the evening, to the point where they were actually giving the women a run for their money. Some of my favorites included Bad Bunny in custom Jacquemus, Diddy in one of his own couture designs, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in Tom Brown, and Alton Mason in Karl Lagerfeld. Although I can appreciate that Lil Nas X was open to experimenting with his bold silver look, I personally think that he missed this year's theme entirely, and as such, I just don't really care for it. Cardi B had not one, not two, but three looks during the Met Gala. She wore the first as she was leaving her hotel, bamboozling the entire internet into thinking that that was her outfit for the red carpet. But she later swapped the pink gown for a dress that featured large rosettes and a stiff collar, and combined with her gray hair, it was a clear ode to Lagerfeld's personal style. Later on in the evening, she also changed into a fitted houndstooth dress, which was honestly better than half of the other attendees' outfits. Much like his predecessor Coco Chanel, throughout his career Lagerfeld sported a signature look that was instantly recognizable, to the point that it was even used on merchandise and was worn by celebrities on Halloween. For several decades, Lagerfeld wore large black sunglasses, fingerless gloves, suit jackets, and high collars, and would also tie his long hair into a ponytail. The look encapsulated Lagerfeld's design sensibilities, featuring classic, well-tailored pieces, hints of Rococo aristocratic elegance, and edgy accessories for a contemporary twist. As I initially predicted, multiple celebrities dressed up in a similar fashion as Lagerfeld, with some being more literal and others more experimental, although almost all added a necktie and some leather gloves. Besides tweed, bows, rosettes, and neckties, another frequent motif on the Met Gala red carpet were pearls, which are a staple of the House of Chanel. Although Lagerfeld did use pearls, I personally associate him with thick, chunky chains and fake stones far more, and I'm genuinely surprised that we didn't see those make their way onto more outfits. The only one who came close to being appropriately blinged out in my opinion was Michaela Cole, who wore custom Schiaparelli. What's even worse than an ugly outfit is one that is totally unmemorable, and there were a good deal of those. Although many of these outfits were technically on theme, it was such a surface level approach to it that I don't even think they deserve any credit for doing the bare minimum. Besides the outfits I've already talked about, some of my favorites of the evening were Gigi Hadid in Givenchy, Billie Eilish in Simone Rocha, Ava Max in Christian Siriano, and Paris Hilton in Marc Jacobs. My overall thoughts on the rather monochromatic evening is that unlike past Met Galas, most people were successful when it came to dressing on theme, but only because it was so straightforward, which is simultaneously a double-edged sword, because very few people actually bothered doing anything creative, and halfway through the evening, I was already bored. Which celebrity had your most and least favorite outfit at the 2023 Met Gala? I hope you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!